Hello and welcome to the sports show. Still name pending. This is our special Saturday episode. We actually recorded this um Wednesday. Just forgot what day it was for a second there.
Long
Today's
week.
yeah, long week, long 24 hours. Today we're gonna go through each of the NFL teams and decide, do these quarterbacks need to be benched? Are they good to go? Should we let them cook? So on and so forth. The only exception to this rule, I didn't talk to you about this before. If a quarterback is in their rookie year, they get a pass. And I
That's
think
that's fair.
I think if they're in their second year, I'm gonna give them a little bit more grace. Anything past that, it's a little bit harder to say.
Sure.
So I've got the divisions here. We'll start off with the AFC East, and I think right off the bat we can say Dolphins and Bills keep their quarterback.
Agreed. Next.
The I'll talk about that later. Actually, no, I'll talk about it now. I will say this is Josh Allen's fifth year, fourth year.
Like fifth.
I think he needs to start cleaning up his gunslinging mindset, if you will. Obviously, throwing high amounts of interception doesn't necessarily mean that you're not an elite quarterback. Look at Brett Favre. Um, but at the very least, seeing as how he hasn't really gotten better in that aspect, it warrants looking at. But as long as he still plays at a high level everywhere else, I don't see Josh Allen ever getting benched.
Yeah, I agree. Not even a question. He's a top five quarterback in the league. He needs to reel it in, but still a really dynamic good quarterback.
And then I'm gonna skip the Jets for now and talk about the Patriots. I think I think Mac Jones has got to go. I know this is only his third year, and he's had the one really good year, but the surrounding team is
Rookie
just getting
season.
worse. Hmm?
Yeah, I was just saying rookie season. Yep.
Yeah, like he's just getting worse and worse. And I was watching a YouTube video that described the Patriots as a team that was designed to beat 2010 teams, and we're not playing a 2010 style of football anymore. And while I agree to that to a certain extent, it's not like the Patriots defense is actually the Patriots defense is randomly really good. Holy cow. Um they've only allowed Oh, nope, never mind. I was reading the list wrong. I was like they've only allowed 72 points. That's 72 points
Wrong
for.
side.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So like their defense, which is what the Patriots should be known for, is also suffering. And very clearly, Belichick doesn't really trust Mac Jones to do much because all they're doing is throwing slants and quick play or slants and screens and other quick throws. And he's losing confidence himself. He's got kind of a chip on his shoulder, and I think at the very least he needs to get benched. Maybe not kicked off the team, but I think he needs to be benched before he comes back.
Yeah. I think he first of all, there's no one on the Patriots roster that's a better option. So I do think the Patriots need to really consider drafting a new quarterback um, this spring, especially depending what position they get. I mean, right now, it seems like they're probably going to have a high draft pick. So especially if it's a top 10 pick or something like that, they definitely need to consider drafting a quarterback, in my opinion. Like we were saying, Mac Jones had that one really good season, his rookie year, but not all his fault. Bill Belichick, his second year, went with Matt Patricia as the offensive coordinator, and that obviously was a terrible idea. And I think that kind of like helped, Mac Jones kind of regress a little bit, and he's regressed even more this year because he hasn't been able to totally fix that from his second year, even though Bill O'Brien's a new offensive coordinator. So I think he kind of just needs a new start. I'm not saying he can't play in the NFL because he has shown that within the right system, with some weapons, with a competent offensive coordinator and Josh McDaniels his first year. He could potentially be a starter somewhere, but I feel like it's almost like bridges burned in New England. He needs a fresh start. They need a fresh start. I don't think he's the future there.
And I don't. This is kind of a spoiler. I think Mac Jones might be the worst quarterback in the league right now. Um,
That's an argument.
and then the other quarterback that often gets touted as one of the worst quarterbacks is Zach Wilson for the Jets.
Well,
And
I mean, real quick, do we want to go with Zach or do we want to go with Aaron? I mean, I know he's obviously starting right now, but
I think we have to go with Zach, right? Because Zach's the starter for the rest of the season. And to be honest, for better or for worse, Zach Wilson is the Jets guy, right? Like Aaron Rodgers is kind of a stopgap right now, and even kind of narrative behind Zach Wilson this year is that he sits behind Aaron Rodgers and learns Nathaniel Hackett's system this year and next year. I don't.
I I don't think Zach is necessarily the next guy. I think if he shows vast improvement, he can be, but I don't think that was necessarily like in the Jets' plan. That even if Rogers is gone after 2 years, that Zach is for sure going to be the next guy. Definitely a possibility, but I think you could say if Aaron like heading into the season, I think Zach was just a pure backup. Like he is fighting his way to try to get back into this league. So
And don't get me wrong. I think beginning of the season, there was no chance Zach Wilson was going to play any of these games as a starter if Aaron Rodgers was healthy. Um, but I think, from my understanding of the whole Aaron Rodgers, because I know, Brady has said he's going to retire for 6 years and never did. But from my understanding is that Aaron Rodgers really wanted to retire relatively soon. Not that he couldn't play anymore, but just that he didn't want to. Part of that might have been being on Matt LaFleur's team. Part of that might have just been fatigue with being on the Packers. Um, so the narrative I've heard is that um, he was supposed to train up Zach Wilson to kind of replace him on the Jets and help Zach Wilson look good. And so I give him a lot of the benefit of a doubt because he's not supposed to be the starter for the Jets this year, and realistically, probably wasn't going to be the starter for the Jets next year.
and he's second year right now too.
Yeah,
So like he's basically a rookie in my opinion. Like I feel like last year was almost like a wash. You know what I mean?
and I don't know if you watched the Jets Bills game, but they zoomed in on his face like his first snap, and he just looked panicked, like he was not ready to play. Um,
No.
so I don't even so assuming that Aaron Rodgers wasn't on the roster, I don't know if it's time to bench Zach Wilson because he has shown flashes of brilliance. Knowing that he's supposed to be a backup and he wasn't even supposed to play this year, I think he gets a pretty hard pass from me on and just letting him play this year. Like I said,
Yeah.
I think Wilson's gonna be their guy, and it's not like they have to decide right away. He has 3 more years after the season for the Jets to decide if they want to keep him or not.
I do agree overall. I don't think it's time to bench him, and they can't bench him because they don't have anyone that else is better. But like you were saying, he has shown improvement week by week. So that's all you can ask for from your quarterback. So I would agree. Jets, in my opinion, at least for the rest of the year, and assuming Aaron Rodgers comes back, they're secure in their position.
And I think, and I don't want to talk about this for every single team, but especially with the AFC East, I think there's something to be said that there's a lot of competition and it's going to be hard winning that division spot. And I think realistically, without Rodgers, you're kind of fighting for a wild card spot because the Dolphins and the Bills look really good right now. The Dolphins look really good right now. The Bills have looked good for most of their games.
Agreed. What's next?
AFC West, Pat Mahomes needs to get benched.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Well, I wish he would. Yeah, but
so I don't know about Jimmy G is kind of a anomaly, right? Because he's got something like a 90% win rate whenever he's starting, but I don't think he's played a full season in his career.
yeah, no,
Maybe
he did. He did that season. He
the
went to the
Super
Super
Bowl.
Bowl.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really about it, though.
Um, I don't think the Raiders should bench him right now. Oh, so what I want to mention at the beginning is I'm going to be ignoring stuff like cap hit, stuff like fan pressure. So like later when we talk about Deshaun Watson, for example, obviously the Browns aren't going to bench Deshaun Watson if he's healthy because he just costs them too much damn money. So I'm going to ignore all of that for the sake of these discussions.
Okay.
Um, so with that being said, I don't think you bench Jimmy G just yet. I think you give him this year. He's already hurt. He might be out for the season because the man is made of paper mache. Um, but I think you give him one full year or like 2.5 injury seasons, right? Like,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's hard to tell because Jimmy G was on a very talented 49ers roster. Um, and it's not only that, it's looking like there's some coaching issues with the Raiders. Devontae Adams has barely gotten any targets. Um, so I don't want to put the whole blame on Jimmy Garoppolo, but no matter how good of a quarterback you are, if you're not able to play, you're not able to play, and you shouldn't play. And I think going forward, that's something that the Raiders have to be cognizant of. Is Jimmy G has a history of being injured, and they're all serious injuries. And it's not like he's going to get more durable as he gets older. Like the
Yeah.
injury issue is not going to get better.
Well, I think you're kind of arguing from my point in the standpoint there, as in, yeah, I mean, you're not going to bench him this year, but I do think the Raiders, especially, they're 2-3 right now. I think, let's say they only win like 6 games and they have a top 10 to 15 pick, right? Um, I do think the Raiders do need to consider drafting another quarterback if they feel like Jimmy G is going to, still be brittle and miss every other game with an injury. And if they also feel like the quarterback they drafted in the later rounds last year, Aiden O'Connell, I think is his name, if he's not going to be the guy either. Um, because if they feel like if they're in the top 15 and they have the option to draft someone, they think they could at least sit behind Jimmy G for a couple of years, something like that. I think they should consider that.
I don't know if they should draft a quarterback this year with a top 10 pick. If they're top 5, sure. I just think that there's a lot of other things that the Raiders need to fix up
There is.
before they look at quarterback. I think a healthy Jimmy Garoppolo, at his worst, is a very passable quarterback. A 50th percentile quarterback.
If he would just stay healthy, I wouldn't put him on, but I think you got to factor that into it. Like he just
Yes, yeah.
even with the 49ers last year, I think he would probably still be with the 49ers if he would. I mean, maybe not, but
I don't think he would have
better,
been.
better chance if he didn't get injured as much. His accountability was definitely part of that reason, in my opinion. So I say yes to not. I mean, not no to benching, but yes to potentially drafting a quarterback. You say no overall,
Yeah,
right?
at least for next year,
Okay.
through next year.
Who's next?
We got Justin Herbert. Something needs to change in the
He-
Chargers.
Not
It's,
him though.
I mean, it might have to be him. Not because he's the problem, but something needs to change. And if the Chargers are not willing to fire Staley for whatever reason, then it needs to be him.
Like trade him or like what?
Yeah, trade him. You could get so much for him. I don't think he's the
That would
problem
never happen.
at all.
Yeah, that would never happen though. I feel like you fight so hard, not fight, but you try so hard to get what you think is a franchise quarterback, And unless you think, I mean, if you feel like you want to go the other route and just build a roster and, trade him and get kind of like a Russell Wilson thing where it's like you get, 4 or 5 first round picks and a bunch of stuff, they could do that. But it's just, I don't
I'm
ever
just
see that happening.
I'm just saying if the Chargers decide that Staley is the guy, which DJ put
That'd
this
be
very
dumb.
well. If you're a coach who has already made it to the playoffs and cannot go up or down in seeding, why the fuck are you starting your quarterback who is it's Justin Herbert's no Jimmy Garoppolo, but he is injury prone. Why would you put him up against a top 5 defense in a game that doesn't matter just to have him get hurt and not play in your fucking playoff game well anyway?
Justin Herbert?
Yeah, he got hurt against the Broncos last year, week 17. In a game
Well,
that did not matter, he got hurt
well,
and did
he's
not.
still playing the playoffs.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
he wasn't perfect in the playoffs, like health wise. And
No,
there,
he
like
wasn't.
leading up to it, there were questions of whether he could play or not. He's playing
Yeah.
right now with a broken finger on his off throwing hand. To be fair, but
Right.
like
That's definitely management, right? That's
yeah,
management, head coaching, GM. Like you got to put him in better positions. Brandon Staley's a defensive coach. Your defense is atrocious. I think we talked about this in our
yeah,
last podcast. So just think if they had like a top 10, top 15 defense, I would think Justin Herbert and obviously the team would be a lot better. So you can't get rid of him. Um, Russell Wilson next.
yeah. It's the same thing as the Chargers. I think very clearly we talked about this last time. Very clearly, the team does not want to play for Russ. I don't know if we talked about the birthday party thing during the podcast or not,
We
where
did.
only half the people showed up.
We did.
There's something happening with that team, and I don't think Russell Wilson is the problem, but I do think getting rid of Russell Wilson and rallying the team together behind someone else will fix a lot of their problems that they have. Because again,
Yeah.
how does a team
Yep.
go from a top 5 defense to last in the league? And then how does that same team somehow keep Mahomes at 19 points?
Yeah. Lots of issues with the Broncos. So wait, do you say yes, keep Wilson, or no, let him go,
I
or draft
think
a new quarterback
I think let him go. Well, yeah, because we're ignoring
at
we're
this
ignoring
moment?
like we're ignoring like cost and everything. I think we need to move
Yes.
on from Russ. I don't think it's gonna happen, but I think it needs to happen because Russ has lost the locker room, and much like Carson Wentz with the Colts, once that happens, you don't have people fighting for you, and I think that is very important, especially for a quarterback like Russ, where um he's very much of an improviser.
I'm similar to Russ as I am with Jimmy G and the Raiders, as in he's obviously not as injury prone or anything, but if they are having a top 10, top 15 pick, and there's someone there they really like, and because obviously, once again, if we're there, we've only won like 5 games, it'd be the same amount of games as we won last season with Nathaniel Hackett. I think it's something we definitely consider. Because honestly, if we're tracked to win 5 games, as I said in the last podcast, I think there's a good chance Jarrett Stidham probably starts a couple games, if not more. So at this moment, it could change if he has a really good game against the Packers at home. But at this moment, I think they would at least need to consider drafting a quarterback. Like I don't think he should be safe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I do have my own ideas on what the Broncos should do that I want to talk about in the second half of this podcast. But let's move on to the AFC North.
Let's do it.
I'm gonna make this really quick, and I'll elaborate more on it. I think Joe Burrow is the only quarterback who should keep his job, and maybe Lamar Jackson, because Lamar Jackson isn't a bad quarterback. So I think Joe Burrow for sure. Lamar Jackson, there's no reason to not keep him. But Steelers and Browns, I think, need to move on.
So we agree with Burrow. We agree with Jackson. They Steelers need to move on. Let's talk about Watson real quick. Obviously, he's got his allegations.
And
And you said financially. Go ahead. Yep.
yeah, well, for once, I will ignore Deshaun Watson's allegations because
Okay.
this is a hypothetical world anyway. But we talked about how um the Chargers would look good if they had a top 10 defense. Imagine the Browns with a top 10 offense.
Sure. Yeah.
And Deshaun Watson has not shown that he is capable of playing at the same level that he was playing before he effectively took a 2-year hiatus, quote unquote hiatus, definitely not suspended. But before he took 2 years off of football, and then comes back, doesn't look great last year, and then this year looks worse. Is medically cleared to play 3 weeks ago and still hasn't
Right.
played again.
That's my thing. I'm like, what's going on there? Like, what is going on behind the scenes? Because, like you said, he's been medically cleared to play. I think at least 2 weeks in a row, and for whatever reason, he hasn't
And the
played. So I'm
bye.
like,
They had a bye
yeah,
week too.
and then right, sure. So it's like, what's kind of going on there? So things like that make me start to think like, is there a way they can get out of this? Like, you know what I mean? Like, is there something deeper in there? Because like, if you're gonna pay this guy basically $250 million guaranteed, you need him on the field playing when he can play. So if it's gonna keep going on like these non-football related things where he can't play or whatever the case may be, like I don't think he's worth it at that point.
And here's the thing: is maybe here's my conspiracy theory: is the 2 games that he was cleared to play that he didn't play, Ravens and 49ers, both very tough defenses and very physical teams. But if he's scared of playing, that is not the guy that you want rallying your team. So I think Deshaun Watson has had the one good game this year, but I think he probably needs to get benched because let's be honest here, PJ Walker didn't look great, but he has very similar stats to what Deshaun Watson had. So
Yeah, no, I think we agree. I think financially, obviously, you got to keep him right now as it stands. But if there's a way to get out of it somehow, I think the Browns would start to consider pretty soon. So let's go Burrow and Jackson for AFC North.
it sucks because the Browns are the team that people dump their expensive players on.
Always. Who do we got next?
We got the AFC South, but there's not really anyone to talk about because we got Trevor Lawrence, who obviously is not going to get benched because he looks good.
He's in. Yeah.
Anthony Richardson, who's out for the rest of the season anyway. So Gardner Minshew kind of has the same pass as Zach Wilson gets.
But he's still in. Yep.
CJ Stroud, who's a rookie quarterback.
Looks good. He's in.
And then Ryan Tannehill, who the Titans have been
Ooh.
trying to move past from for like the past 3 years.
So he's obviously out. I think they're gonna. I mean, he's kind of like in the Kirk Cousins like same situation as in like I feel like a team, a veteran team with a good roster might take a chance on him, next year. But I think he's kind of run his course with Tennessee. He's kind of regressed recently. Derrick Henry, I just saw in the news that they might try to trade him by a trade deadline. So if he loses Derrick Henry, Tannehill's got no weapons basically. Um, in the running back position, and he hasn't been using his receiving weapons either. So DeAndre Hopkins doesn't look very happy. And I forget he's even on that team to be honest. But yeah, I feel like Tannehill is the one where you definitely consider drafting another quarterback. I know they just drafted 2 quarterbacks in a row, Malik Willis, and then Will Levis. But neither of those guys are really panning out. I mean, you just got to keep trying till something sticks, to be honest.
I think
And
I think you
they
have to
they
start
need
one
some.
of them this year.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you at least got to try him out. I know Willis didn't play too well last year in like the one game he started. Maybe he's better this year. If it's not him, then try Levis out. But you got to see what you have, and then with that you can take that into you're drafting and see if there's anyone else better than what you currently have,
I
which
agree
I
with
think there is. So
and I agree with everything you said. Besides one thing,
yeah,
um,
let's hear it.
I don't think Ryan Tannehill is at the same level of Kirk Cousins because I think Kirk next year is going to start for a team. I think
Kirk's better. Kirk's better. I agree.
I
He's
think
definitely better.
I don't think Tannehill starts next year. I think Tannehill will
Yeah,
get signed onto a team as a backup. I don't think he starts.
you're right. I think, yeah, you know what? I think you're right. I think there's a small chance, depending if it's a certain team, right situation. But yeah, I think you're right. I think a better chance he's just a backup somewhere. Yep.
That I'm watching this list that you're writing, and like I like the idea behind it, but I kind of wish it did the opposite of getting rid of
Mm.
instead of keeping.
Why you know why I did it? I thought we would have more keep it. We'll see. Let's keep going. Let's keep going.
All right, so moving on to the other side of football, the NFC. Um, we've got the Eagles. Same thing as Lamar Jackson. There's not really a reason to move on from Jalen Hurts.
Yep.
Honestly, do you think Jalen Hurts looks at Lamar Jackson or Cam Newton and goes, "I don't want to end up like that. I need to become better as a pocket passer"? Because
I
both
think
Lamar Jackson and
yeah.
Cam Newton are kind of getting pounded and just hurt all the time now
No,
because of their play style.
I think he has to. I mean, Newton got pounded all those years, tried to play like a running back as a quarterback, and regressed a lot after his MVP season. And Lamar Jackson still playing. He's actually having a pretty good season, actually. But you know, he was injured for half of last year. Injuries, year after year. So yeah, Hurts to me is like kind of like a like a bull. You know what I mean? Like he can kind of like take some of that pounding, but he's playing hurt right now. So I do think he needs to be very wary of that. But the only thing is like him running is part of his game. Like he needs to be able to run in order to be able to throw. So he can't just be a pure pocket passer, in my opinion, from what I've seen so far. But with the combo of those things is what makes him a really good player. So
Sure,
something he needs to watch out for, but something he still needs to do though to be successful.
sure, but he can run like a Steve Young and not like a Michael Vick, right? Like he can create space without running into people like Cam Newton did. But that's not a
Yeah,
here or there. I
yeah,
I think they
I don't
keep
disagree.
Cowboys. I think Dak Prescott should be on the hot seat. I don't think he should be
Agreed.
benched yet. He has not looked good the last two games. The Chargers game especially is pretty damning because the Chargers have a pretty bad passing defense.
Yep.
And then obviously the 49ers game, he got spanked. Um, there's this weird narrative going on that Dak Prescott is this very consistent quarterback, but he's not. He's very turnover prone.
He's consistently average.
I mean, I don't even think he's consistently average. I think
Okay.
he's a perennial 9 and 8, 8 and 9 player, but he is not average and he's not consistent. He is going to turn the ball over at key situations, but he's also going to clutch out games. And this year, Dallas is trying really hard to adjust the offense. They're running a college style offense for Dak. And I don't know if that's a good thing in terms of is Dak going to be a long term quarterback for the Cowboys. And I really think the Cowboys need to think about acquiring someone else. And I don't think they're going to be able to get anyone in the draft because they're not going
Right.
to finish anywhere close enough to get a good pick. But maybe they can trade Prescott for one of the higher picks. But I think he's safe for this year, but he's on the precipice of being benched.
Yeah, no, I think the Cowboys need to start looking. It doesn't need to be, like you said, it doesn't need to be through the draft because it'll probably be too high to draft someone, that would be a better option than Prescott. It's a good draft this year with quarterbacks, but even then, you have to know that quarterback is going to be a better option. Um, and I feel like Dak he's to the point where he's lost, his athleticism that he had early in his career, where he could also run, but now he's a pure pocket passer, and he's not a very good pure pocket passer. So I know he just signed that contract a year or two ago, but I think the Cowboys know what they have in him right now and need to start looking for another option, whether that's through through any kind of free agency or trades or something. Something needs to be looked at to possibly replace Dak Prescott.
And I will say I don't think that's gonna happen because right now Dak has a very, very high floor and a very low ceiling. You basically know what you're gonna get with Dak,
Yep, exactly.
and the Cowboys have to understand that where that is not a Super Bowl. It's not even a conference game. And I don't think Dak is enough to elevate a team. And if you sign someone better, you have to understand that they're probably going to have terrible years and terrible games. Um, I think the only one we're going to argue about is the Commanders. So let's go through the Giants. I think
And
I think Danny
yeah,
Dimes needs to go. He is having his worst career year, and the problem is he got this huge contract last year, basically on the fact that he can run the ball. Like he basically off the back of him being a good scrambler. And
and yeah,
I was gonna say it's funny because you can tell that that's why he got the contract. Because last year, every like good quote unquote good Giants game was Danny Dimes ripping it for like 100 yards. I don't know if he had actually ran for 100 yards, but
he's
um
fast.
he is fast. DJ and
Yeah.
I have a joke that Daniel Jones can't throw an interception if he doesn't throw the ball, and it just feels like that's how the Giants play. And I think he needs to be moved on from. That is not how you play in the NFL. It's not a
Yeah,
sustainable way of playing the
he had a
NFL.
really good year with Brian Daboll being his offensive coordinator to start him off. Like he basically squeezed everything he possibly could out of Daniel Jones that first year. Obviously, the NFL was kind of surprised with whatever they were doing with him because they hadn't seen him before and they weren't able to game plan it, as well because they hadn't seen it. So I think he had one really good year. Um, and I think this is the end of it, and I think they're going to move on sooner rather than later. Even though they got that new contract extension with them recently, I think they do need to look at other options. Um, I don't know how. I
You're
don't know
not.
if they can get
I
what's
mean,
up.
you and I understand that that's not going to happen, though, right? Like you and I were both watching football when Jamarcus Russell had multiple years as the Raiders' starting quarterback.
Yeah, that's the thing. The Giants just put themselves in a bad position. Like, there's no way. Like everyone was saying, like, don't make that contract. Like, if Daniel Jones wants all that money, like he can kick rocks. Like either he wants it or he can go to free agency, and the Giants can find production out of someone else just as much. I mean, they almost beat the Bills with Tyrod Taylor. I mean, not the best example, but um, yeah, he's got to go. Once again, I don't know how they're going to do it. He's probably the only one where I don't really have a solution as far as like what they should do. They're probably stuck with him for a little bit, but if they could, they should let him go.
Yeah, he's definitely on the bench.
All right,
Um,
Sam Howell.
I think I think they keep him. He's not he's not going to be a top 5, top 10 quarterback. Thing is, I don't think every quarterback needs to be a top 5 quarterback. And I think Sam Howell does enough to help his team win games. Is he going to pull out a miraculous 28-21 comeback every week? Hell no. Is he going to throw 4 interceptions every single week? Also hell no. You know, those were two very I think I think in just 2 weeks we saw the best of Sam Howell and the worst Sam Howell. And to me, he just looks like a budget Dak Prescott. And if that's all your team needs to win the game, then that's all your team needs to win the game. And there's not really a reason to move on from that when there are other things that you can look at right now, right?
Yeah, I would agree. To the extent that I do think there are different ways that you can build your teams, and one way is obviously through a really good roster. And the Commanders do have a good roster on paper. However, they haven't been playing like it. Like Chase Young, where's he at? I haven't like seen him like at all like recently. Sack the quarterback. So um, I do agree in that aspect. If they want to go that route, like you can do it. I mean, other teams have tried that. Tannehill in the past has some success. Purdy, I think he's actually good, but we'll see how good he is. Um, so you can do it via the roster, but I don't know. I just feel like Sam Howell is a pretty average quarterback right now too. So I'm just saying if you feel like you can find a better option in the draft, if you're low enough, or a free agent comes up and you can somehow pick them up, I think you at least consider it. Um, but I'll just say I agree that you can build a team with a good roster, and he is good enough to be that quarterback for that roster.
Yeah, I think Sam Howell kind of falls somewhere between, Dak Prescott and Cooper Rush, right? Where he's a good enough quarterback.
Yeah, I think I like that actually. And you know what? Maybe Cooper Rush is really good because he went 4-1, so I don't know. But yeah, I think he's somewhere in between like the 15th and 20th best quarterback in the league right now.
All right, so let's go to the NFC West. Um, I I don't think we move past. That's really funny. The NFC
It's
West keeps
Jalen.
Jalen
It's
Hurts.
Jalen. I'm not putting Sam. Sorry, it's my list.
Um, so I think the NFC West. I think Brock Purdy can stay. He's he's good enough. I actually think he looks better than what some people are saying he does. I know a lot of people think he's worse than people say he is. So putting him at like 16th, I think is fair, which is all the 49ers need. I think anything more than that is just overkill, and it doesn't elevate the 49ers as much as it would elevate, say the Commanders.
Yeah,
Um,
he's the
Gino
perfect quarterback for that system, in my opinion. So yeah, agreed on Purdy. Let's go, Gino.
Gino has looked surprisingly good. I think there are arguments to be made to bench him, but I don't think any of those really hold weight. I think the two games that they've lost were pretty tough games, if I'm remembering correctly. Okay, the Rams game, not so tough. That's them waking up.
Yeah, first game.
Um, and then they lost against the Bengals, but that was the first game that Joe Burrows looked like a real quarterback.
Yeah, good game.
They just seem like a team that knows what their win condition is, and they know how to, play for their strengths. They beat the Lions. They're the only team that's beaten the Lions so far this year. So
Yeah,
if it ain't broke,
great
don't
win.
fix it.
Yeah, great win at Lions. I agree. Geno Smith is a keep. He's playing pretty well. He had a really good season last year. He's kind of like a redemption story. Like you didn't see this coming at all. And so he's definitely a keep. And he's a good fit for that team. Uh, Stafford,
Uh,
keep.
I'm gonna say keep. I'm gonna add a new category here and say they need to start looking at developing a new quarterback because I think I think you get maybe 2 or 3 good years out of Stafford before he starts a hard decline. And I think
Yeah,
even this year he's kind of looked like he's declining from the Super Bowl winning quarterback 2 years ago. So the Rams have a lot of strengths. It wouldn't take too much to elevate a quarterback up. But I don't think Stafford needs to get benched. I just think that they need to start preparing for Stafford to get benched so that they don't have a situation like the Broncos had when Manning left.
understandable. He's still a keep though, so we'll keep him there. And then are we gonna go Josh Dobbs or Kyler Murray or both?
I think both because Kyler Murray is supposed to come back any day now.
It sounds like I guess he started practicing today or something. So I would say Josh Dobbs. He's been playing his ass off. Not gonna lie, but he's not the long term answer. He could be a bridge maybe, but he's not long term. Kyler can be long term, but obviously he's got um, some injury history recently now. Obviously he's still coming back from an injury, and also some um, like just attitude, personality concerns, right? Like he's kind of hard to work with, hard to deal with. I saw like Hard Knocks or like the prime version of Hard Knocks, and he was like always kind of disrespectful to like Kingsbury and stuff like that. Like I feel like he's if I was a coach, he wouldn't be someone I'd want to really coach. But talent wise, he can be a top 10 quarterback in the league, and I think he was like a year or two ago. Um, I would still say the obviously just signing that quarterback to that contract. Kyler is a keep. Even with some of those issues, maybe Jonathan Gannon can get a different side of him, out of him. But Josh Dobbs is a go.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals are probably the best 1-5 team in the league right now, and I don't think it's even close. Um, I I like Josh Dobbs a lot. I agree. I don't think he's the long term solution. He plays like a very good backup quarterback, and
Yep.
honestly, I think the Cardinals probably should be in the 3-2 area as a record. I don't think. I think the Cardinals need to move on from Kyler Murray. I'm going to say let's give him this year,
Okay.
but when the only person who is vouching for you on the Cardinals gets fired from the team, your job is on the line. He's, all the stuff that you've listed, but he's also had a history of not being able to win games in December. Was that a Cliff Kingsbury thing or was that a Kyler Murray thing? Kind of hard to tell. He's
We'll
got
see.
he's got discipline issues, and I think much like Dak, this is his hot seat, and he probably he probably needs to go, but maybe he'll surprise me this year. I want him to succeed. He's the only Asian guy besides the kicker on the
Yeah.
Falcons.
Experience.
So,
Yeah. No. We'll say keep. NFC North. Want to go with NFC North?
yeah, I think Goff, obvious keep.
Yep.
Love probably merits a discussion. Kirk Cousins, probably, I would say Kirk Cousins keep. And the only reason why I don't think they're going to keep him is price. But Kirk has also not really been able to get them past the hump. I think they lost in the division last year. Or did they lose in the
Yeah.
wild card? I can't remember.
I think it was like I think I'm in the wild card. Gotta double check. Well, for me, let me run down those three because for me, I think it's only Jared Goff that you for sure keep. I think Kirk, we kind of talked about it earlier. I think he is kind of at his end of his like time in Minnesota. It seems like I think he'll still be a starter somewhere next year for sure if it's not with Minnesota. But I think it's kind of just time for a change of pace for him. He's been chopped around already. I think it's going to keep going on. So not a let go because he's a bad quarterback. I just think they need a new fit there, and his contract is running out, and I don't think they're going to re up it for what he wants. So that's the only reason for Kirk. I think Jordan Love still hasn't shown enough yet. They got to get somebody else um, he, there in Packerland. I feel like he's been there for 3 years now, and you'd think he'd be much better than what he's shown so far. Just not there yet. Could be a backup, could be a low end starter, but I don't think he's the guy. And then Justin Fields, he's been playing better, no lie, but he's also injured right now. Um, I got to see more. Uh, I got to see what he does the rest of the season. Maybe he comes back and he proves us wrong, and he's definitely a keep. But right now, I think that door needs to be open still, especially if he kind of reverts back to how he was earlier in the season, not seeing the field well, missing wide open receivers. If that's the Justin Fields that we have, he's definitely not a keep.
So Justin Fields is silently having his best year so far, which is surprising to say because they don't look good. Um, I think Justin Fields probably merits one more year if the Bears are able to make a play for one of the top two quarterbacks in the draft.
Right.
Then I think obviously they go for it.
I think
How,
so too.
however, I think outside of those top two quarterback prospects, I the thing with Justin Fields is they know what they're getting with him now, right?
Right.
There was talks maybe he can elevate his game and become more of a pocket passer. They're basically, if you think about it, the way people talk about Justin Fields is the same way people talked about Tim Tebow, right?
Kinda,
Like a
sort of, kinda.
Tim Tebow who could actually throw,
Yeah, he throws
unfortunately.
better than Tebow. Yeah.
But yeah, he's suddenly having his best year so far. He's already at 1,200 yards. Last year he threw for 2,200 yards, and the year before that 1,800 yards. He's already at 11 touchdowns, um, 6 interceptions, which is not good, obviously.
Right.
But also 2-8 as a starter his rookie year, 3-12 last year, 1-5 right now, and injured again. It doesn't paint a good light for Justin Fields, and seeing them slide down, they're 1-5. I don't I don't know if Justin Fields stays on the team.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I don't know if he does. I think he would need a big turnaround the rest of the year, and I think it's still possible because he's looking with DJ Moore. But as it stands, I don't think he's a keep. So for me, it's just Jared Goff or bust in that division. Um, Last but not maybe least, I don't know. Well, depends what you think about it. NFC South. What are you thinking?
Well, so South, it's just the Panthers who have a rookie quarterback.
So we got Bryce Young as a keep.
I think Baker Mayfield is a keep. It's his first year, new offense, and I think Baker needs to build back up his confidence, right? Because after having a really good year, taking the Browns to the playoffs for the first time in I don't know how long, and just get kicked off the team unceremoniously like that for Deshaun Watson, and ignoring all of my personal hatred towards Deshaun Watson as a person, can you imagine being a quarterback, taking your team to your franchise's first playoff game in what feels like 100 years, and then you get replaced by a guy who hasn't touched a football field in 2 years by the time he starts? Like that's got to do something to your confidence. And then he goes to
Yep.
where did he go?
The Panthers and Rams.
Yeah, he went to the Panthers. For some reason, So he goes to the Panthers, does terribly there, and now we're seeing that the Panthers are just a bad team. But he does terribly in the
Right.
Panthers, gets benched halfway for Sam Darnold, of all people, and then gets traded off to the Rams, where he has a few good games with the Rams before the Rams release him, which I think everyone was expecting because Matt Stafford's the guy. To go on to the Bucks after Brady leaves, like that's got to take a mental toll on the guy, and he's been playing. I'm not gonna say exceptionally well, but he's been playing well enough. And I think he's just gonna get better. I think next year, as soon as next year, Baker Mayfield is gonna look good, and I think that merits keeping, especially when you consider how weak the NFC South looks and is going to look for a while.
Yeah, Baker was actually one of the toughest ones for me. I looked at him as a bridge quarterback at the beginning of the year, but he's played all right. He had a really good game 2 games ago. Last game was against the Lions. No shame in losing against them. So it's tough. This is a tough one. I think I'll just say this. I think that the Bucks need to at least, think and consider about another option, depending where they land next year, because they definitely that thought they'd probably be worse and wouldn't be playing this well. But I think they could be a fringe wild card team if things keep going the way they go. So,
This year,
um, yeah, this year
I don't think they're a fringe wild card. I think they win the division.
the Bucks.
Yeah.
Nah, I think it's the Saints.
Well, it's either the Bucks or the Saints, and
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be
I,
the Bucks, but
Okay, okay. We'll see. I mean, I think they're more fringe. I think they're going to be more like a 6, 7 seed if they make the playoffs. But we'll see. Um, I'll give this is one I'll flip. Last time I said Baker is a no go, but just because they've been playing better, and he's number one overall pick at one point, like he's had good seasons. Maybe he kind of just needs like a redemption season, like Gino had. Obviously quicker, not like 10 years later, but um, it's possible. So I'll put Baker as a keep, um, and
And
that means good.
I was just gonna say, I think what the Bucks need, and this isn't really part of our prompt, but what the Bucks need is a running game because they have the worst running offense in the league right now, which is impressive when you consider that the Broncos exist. The Broncos are
Right,
quietly
we do
actually a
exist.
pretty good running team, but I'm pretty sure that's all off the back of Russell Wilson.
Yeah,
Um,
but, like, I feel like he's rushed more than any of our running backs. It seems like, but um, yeah. So for me, Desmond Ritter is the only one I wouldn't keep. I know he had a good game last week, but so far from what I've seen from him last year and this year, I don't think he has no juice, no pop. He's just a pure game manager, in my opinion. Um, I wouldn't keep him.
I think for me, Desmond Ritter does not look like a great quarterback, but it's also only his second year, I think, right?
Yeah,
It's only his second year. I think he needs more tools around him besides just Bijan Robinson. And I don't know. I think it's tough because I don't know how many other quarterbacks would be in the same team, would be on the Falcons and have a better record. I think there are a lot of quarterbacks who look better than Desmond Ritter, but I don't know if they're better enough to go better than 3-3. Maybe 4-2.
yeah. I just don't think he has. Like I say, he has not enough pop. I think they're kind of scraping off some wins here. They're good. They're an all right team. They're gonna win some games. They got some playmakers. They got Kyle Pitts. They got Bijan Robinson. But um, I just don't think. I think you could take those guys to the next level if you had someone who was like, more than competent at that position.
And I think the biggest thing that the Falcons have going against them, and Desmond Ritter in particular, is when they lose, they look bad. They've only had like one close game, I would say. Last week against the Texans, or I mean, sorry, against the Commanders. In terms of like where games where they lose, right? There are other games that they've lost. The Packers, or I'm losing myself. Other games that they've lost, like 20-6 against the Lions, 23-7 against the Falcons, and then 16-24 against the Commanders. But Desmond Ritter also had 3 interceptions that game, so not does not instill a lot of confidence. I would go either way. I don't think they should bench him, um, but I also don't think that he's going to do anything to win your team games, even though he had the game against the Texans where they came back in the fourth quarter.
I gotcha. So total, we got 19 quarterbacks we would keep. Not necessarily because all of them are great quarterbacks. I'd say there's only about 8 or 9 that are really top tier here. But there's another like 9 to 10 or so that you would at least, consider as a good franchise quarterback that you would not be looking too much to replace right now. But that does leave us with another 13 teams where we would replace them. So that's still a good percentage. That means that um, just a little bit under half the league um, would consider, we think would consider replacing the quarterbacks. So,
So we've got 7 minutes,
all right, let's do it.
6 minutes. Second topic I want to talk about, and I don't want to break it down the way I was originally intending to. What teams do you think should start? There's a term for it. I don't know. Start trading off their high asset members. So I'll go first. And I think the Broncos, and I talked about this last time, needs to get rid of Judy, Sutton, or Simmons, or someone to start building up capital. But I also think what they need to do, if they want to go with Russ, because I mentioned earlier that there's another avenue that the Broncos can go through, and that is if these high players like Simmons, like Judy, like Sutton, if these high like good players don't want to play with Russ, to trade them off for high value picks or trade them off for other positional players and start rebuilding the team that way if you want to go with Russ. If you don't want to go with Russ, then you're kind of hosed because you're stuck with Russ for the next 3 years. There, and I think the Titans need to do the same thing with Derrick Henry. I think the Titans need to admit the fact that they're in full rebuild mode. Who do you think needs to trade off their team to help rebuild their team before the trade deadline in about 2 weeks?
I'm trying to think. I was gonna say Titans right before you said it, so that would have been my second team. So definitely agree with the Broncos. Definitely agree with the Titans. I'm trying to think. Um, who else?
Do you think that there is? Do you think it's better for the Vikings to hope that Kirk Cousins elevates this game this year to try making a push for a 6 or 7 seed? Or do you think that they should try trading Kirk Cousins? Because right off the bat, I could see Commanders wanting to take Kirk Cousins. I could see the Panthers. Yeah. I could see the Panthers wanting to take Kirk Cousins and just let I forget his name, Bryce Young, just let Bryce Young sit. I could see the Falcons wanting to take him. I could see the Colts wanting to take him.
The Falcons and Kirk Cousins, that'd be a great fit, in my opinion. I think that's a good one. I do think the Vikings should consider trading him as well, just so they can get a worse draft pick or a better draft pick with a worse record. Justin Jefferson's already hurt anyway. He's gonna be hurt for a few weeks. Might as well just kind of like semi-tank the season. They're not really going anywhere, in my opinion. So yeah, I think you kind of name them all for us. I think it's Vikings, it's Titans, it's the Broncos right now. And especially if you don't think like they have anywhere to go this season. So is there anyone else that we're missing though? I can't think of any other teams.
I don't like as I'm looking at the bottom tier teams who would want to nuke their team. They don't really have talent to trade off. Like,
yeah,
I guess Chase Young, but who wants him? He hasn't played well for a while. Like, I just can't. I mean, there's to be fair though. I don't know too much about the defensive side of the ball. So maybe they're like maybe the Bears have like a great linebacker or defensive end or something. So I'm only talking like offensively, just because that's what I'm more comfortable talking about. So at least on that side of the ball, I don't see anyone willing or anyone that's worth trading.
No, I think it's just those three teams. I think that those are three good teams right there to consider trading all their assets for other assets.
So then, with the last 2 minutes of this episode, 2-ish minutes, what team that's on the fringe of making it to the playoffs do you think should try trading aggressively to upgrade their weakest positions? So the one that comes to my mind is the Buccaneers need to get a better running back.
Chiefs need to get better wide receivers.
Chiefs?
If they want to actually contend for a Super Bowl.
I can see that. I was thinking more
no wide receivers. Yeah.
I was thinking more people who are trying to even make it to the playoffs.
Like fringe. I know you said fringe, but that's the first thing that comes to my mind was
that's fair.
If there's a fringe team, let me just think. I think nah, that's all I can really think of right now, at least for now. Yeah, I'll just go with that.
And then obviously, I think the Broncos should fire Vance Joseph and get Rex Ryan. I remember about that.
Be an upgrade. Yeah.
On the Pat McAfee show, of all places.
I will say not a fringe team necessarily, but same with the Bills. They need more like weapons. Like it's really just Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen. Like they really have a second wide receiver. They drafted that tight end in the last draft that's supposed to be good, but he's still young. Uh, Bills need to add one more weapon, either a good receiver or a good tight end. So
And I'll say I don't know what they need, but the Rams feel close to being a good team again. I don't know what they're missing exactly, but they're missing something.
well, Cooper Cup just came back and they won that game, right? So they might have just gotten it. That could have been the missing piece.
But we're 1 minute over,
Yeah,
30 seconds
close this
over.
out.
So thank you guys for listening. We'll be back on Tuesday. And we'll probably have more of these Saturday episodes talking about less time specific stuff. I know I want to go through. Nate sent me this terrible list of a quarterback ranking that I just want to rip into. So stay tuned. I'm starting to overpromise again, so we might not do that. But we'll definitely see you next Tuesday.